Welcome back to the Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this afternoon I'm joined by Chris McElwain and Sean Conley. We're talking Celtic 3 Hearts 0. At half-time, Sean, we said that so often you can be dominant and win the game in the first half, and then it kind of teeters out a wee bit and tapers off in the second. It was a wee bit like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, was indeed. Yeah, there was really not a lot going on in the second half. It was, to be fair, it wasn't just from a Celtic perspective. Hearts absolutely shut up shop. They brought on an extra midfielder, went to 5 at the back, and just completely cancelled any idea of their high press or trying to attempt to score a goal. Really, the two times Hearts only looked close to creating something in the second half was 2 shaky moments from Mike Novrotsky, which I think kind of reflected his overall game quite erratic. But that's the way I focus on the negative. I thought we were pretty, we started a little bit on the back foot, a little bit shaky under pressure from Hearts in the first 10 minutes. They create a good chance, and then Callum McGregor opens the game up, and he dictated the game for the hour he was playing, and he puts Maeda through with unbelievable touch, unbelievable through ball. Maeda puts his 1-0 up after 17 minutes. Maeda then hits the post with a header, and Jota follows it in to make it 2-0. And then again, Kuhn gets free on the right-hand side and finds Maeda at the back post. So I think the stadium gave Maeda the man of the match in the end because he gets 2 goals and an assist. Then that puts him on 30 for the season, and 6 games in a row now he's scored. He's 1 away from his 60th goal for Celtic. And what was his 150th appearance? So I wonder if there was a little bit of sentiment there. But no, I think those two were the best players on the pitch today, McGregor and Maeda. When they went off, we basically didn't create anything after that. And again, a lot of that's down to Hearts just shutting up after that, not even looking any interest, like Craig Gordon time wasting it. Goal kicks when they're 3-0 down, that sort of thing, you know.
This is the thing. They just don't want to be embarrassed. It could have been 5 or 6 in that second half, going by the first half performance, and they've shut up shop. Celtic, I thought it was a good opportunity in that second half, Chris, to bring in some of these guys that are coming back from injury. Paulo Bernardo, as was mentioned throughout the second half, cameo, didn't put a foot wrong. Forrest comes in to make another appearance, and you hope that these guys can play a part between now and the end of the season. But again, very positive today. I mean, listen, it was a good performance. We blew them away. The goals were excellent, very, very clinical. I want to actually start off by talking about this man, Dyson Maeda. I can't remember if when we were frustrated by him in the past, we called him Dyson or Maeda. But anything goes now because he has had a sensational, he is having a sensational season. And I was looking at my records here, and I remember writing this down, checking it out when Lee Griffiths hit 40 goals back in 2015-16, right? And I thought to myself, as a geek like me does, how many Celtic players have scored 40 or more goals in a season? And there are only 8. Some of them have done it multiple times. So I'm going to read through this list here because, listen, on that run that Sean's talking about, 6, successive games, 30 goals, games to go. Lee Griffiths scored 40 goals in 2015-16. Now, Larsson has scored 40 or more goals on quite a few occasions. So he comes in at 41 twice. He did that in 2002-03, 2003-04. He scored 41 goals 2 seasons consecutively. What a player. Brian McClare scored 41 goals in 86-87, and Dalglish did the same in 72-73. Bobby Lennox did it in 67-68. Jimmy McGrory, he liked a goal. He scored 42 in 1925-26. He scored 50 in 35-36. He scored 53 in 1927-28, and he scored 57 in 1926-27. What a machine. Joe McBride scored 43 goals in 65-66. He would have scored more the following season, but he'd done his leg. And Charlie Nicholas scored 48 in 1982-83. What a player he was, coming. The last great goal scorer that we've produced. And Henrik Larsson scored 53 goals, you'll remember, in 2000-2001.
Best
right.
season ever. Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there. Guys. Let us know in the comment section. Can Dyson join that illustrious group of 8 Celtic legends? Chris, I'm going to ask you first. Think he can do it?
I tell you, it's an incredible roster, isn't it? I mean, you just went through those names. It's phenomenal. Fortunate to see a few of those, a few of those in my time. But I mean, I would say Maeda's got every chance of joining that. The way he's playing at the moment, he's on form. He looks motivated, looks hungry. He's showing composure that we didn't always associate with him. He seems to be really cementing his place as the number one striker. And he's playing like a player on confidence and a player who's happy as well. Happy with his own performances, happy with his environment. From everything we hear from, those who know him best, and experts like Liam Carrigan who followed his career, he's at a place where he's getting everything he needs from a football sense. So, yeah, I think unless he gets an injury, and touch wood that doesn't happen, I see no reason why he can't actually go and get more games where he scores 1, 2, 3 and more goals, because he just looks sharp as a tack at the moment. Really good.
Sharpness is his thing, isn't it? He's the bionic man. And it just feels, Sean, the reason I'm asking the question, it feels like he's got 30 goals fairly early. I mean, we mentioned the late great Joe McBride there. He was on 30 goals before Christmas, by the way, in the Lisbon season, right? And the chances were he got a really, really bad knee injury against Aberdeen. The chances were that had he been fit, he'd have probably started in the European Cup final. Had he been fit, he'd have probably started in place of Stevie Chalmers. So thank God he didn't start, but it was so unfortunate they had such a bad injury. Sean, is it too early to be talking about that? Can he do it? I mean, a hat-trick, for example, changes everything, doesn't it?
Well, he scored 8 goals in these 6 games, and there's 7 league games plus potentially 2 cup games left, 9 games. So if he keeps up that rate, then he's definitely over it. He's going to have probably 2 of those games he won't score anyway. But yeah, you're right. If he knocks up a couple of doubles and a hat trick, then he's definitely going to do it. And yeah, it could go down as an all-timer. So, and where does that put us next year in terms of signing strikers? I don't know. But let's just enjoy it for the rest of the season. We've got it, and we'll deal with the problem, quote unquote, next season of what to do with Maeda and the rest of the team.
Yeah, this, right? I want him to stay because he's brilliant, and I don't like quality players leaving Celtic. But I would love to see him play an entire season at centre forward. Then the figures could get mind-boggling at that stage, right? Because as Chris quite rightly said at half-time, where he was going for his hat-trick, he's played the vast majority of his time out in the left wing. Is Rocky here to stay? Now, Sean gave us his take on Nawrocki's performance in that game. Chris, I'm going to ask you, how do you think he performed? Is he here to stay?
I think it's a difficult game to judge him because, particularly in that second half, Hearts didn't really offer anything. I thought there were a couple of moments similar to Sean where he looked a wee bit erratic, but overall I thought his performance was okay. I thought he did his job well. I like I said at half-time, I don't think his game is necessarily bringing the ball out from the back and playing it forward and building those attacking moves. But I thought what he was asked to do today, he did to an adequate enough standard. I mean, we've seen every one of our central defenders have off days and bad games and things like that. I don't think we've seen a real bad performance over the 2 games that we've seen Nawrocki play. I just think he's steady. Steady is the way I would describe his performance today. Didn't do anything particularly wrong. Popped up actually a couple of decent interceptions, a couple of decent challenges, but wasn't outstanding either. So for me, he looks like a steady hand to go in there when he's playing alongside Carter Vickers and the rest of the back line. And I think the fact that we really weren't threatened at any point in that match. Other than that, I think in 10 minutes that one point blank save by Sinisalo, I think it's testament to how the whole team played today.
I'm looking at Nawrocki, and I think I said before the game or at half-time that he may not have the qualities that Brendan is looking for the long-term progression and development of the team. But while he's putting in performances like that, absolutely great. However, I think that Trusty's on that bench and he's just basically biding his time to come back in. Trusty's still the first choice. Nawrocki then drops to the bench, and he might get some game time between now and the end of the season, because we've seen what it's been like with centre-half injuries over the last few campaign. So I think he then drops back. He's a backup, and I do believe that if we get a decent offer, maybe even a loan to buy in the summer, that Nawrocki will probably be allowed to go, because he's not made the impact that you would have expected over the last 2 seasons. Particularly when you look at the transfer fee, 4.3 million quid for him. So it was a big outlay. Brendan McCarthy, you're watching on the YouTube. Anybody else watching on that particular platform, then subscribe to the channel. We have got a lot happening in the world of Acsom. We've got a new headquarters, and we'll start to broadcast from there on a daily basis very, very soon, certainly for the new season. Maybe before that, we'll do some test runs as well. So lots of changes happening, but all for the better. And we'll always be here at 12:30 every single weekday, as we have done for a number of seasons. I'll need to double check now. Ange Postecoglou's, no, when we were going for the 10 was our first season, then Postecoglou's 2 seasons, and now, 5 seasons, never missed a game. There we go. Brendan McCarthy, great to see a good performance and great to see our players back. It's always great to see them back. The one thing I would note once again, every time this happens, a lot of season ticket holders unable or not, at the game today. When are we going to set up this ticket exchange scheme, Sean? There was people messaging me today looking for tickets. A lot of
sold out weeks in advance, allegedly. But there were sections that were like on the touchline, so you could see it, right? Like the camera wasn't covering the whole stadium, the whole game, but there were sections where there was more plastic than people, and that was like pitch side seats. It was very, like, and every time I come to Scotland, I really struggle to get a ticket for a Celtic game, like really struggle. And it's like almost impossible to get 2 seats together, which is what you really want. You don't want to go to the game on your own. You want to go with your kids, your dad, like it's, if I could get 5 seats, I would take them. No problem. And there was like a row of 15 empty seats, like 4 from the front, just off the halfway line. And it's like, come on, man. I get it's bad weather, and look, you've said it yourself before, Paul. It's they're losing money. Concession stands are losing money everywhere by not, and the way other teams work it is, whoever puts up their season ticket, if someone pays for it, then the punter gets something like, I can remember, 30% off. So 30% of the ticket value credited to next season's season ticket.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, so they don't even need to work out any kind of transaction system of paying fans. They just use it as credit for next season. And the club takes the other 70%. Like, it doesn't make sense to not do it. I don't understand this.
No.
Well, the only thing I would say, just I did see somebody mention at half time when the few people in the comments were talking about the attendance. Apparently there was an accident on the M8 which may have affected a lot of people getting to the game. So not sure. I've not seen any reports on that myself. Just I've seen a few people in the comments talking about it. So hopefully nobody was. If there was an accident in the M8, first priority. Hopefully everybody was okay. But that could have contributed to some of the empty seats.
Yeah, and again, this isn't having a dig at people not going to the games. There's a million reasons why someone can't go to the game. It's more why do the club not have a ticket exchange system in place? Because those seats could then be occupied. There's the extra spend in and around the stadium. That's the point. And today, massive game. We absolutely blew hearts out the water in the first half. Second half was a bit of a non-event as a result of that. And we spoke about that at half-time. We kind of preempted that. We've seen it so often where the opposing team it's a damage limitation, they nullify the game. Celtic still dominated, of course. Great to see Quinny in the chat. Go and check him out on YouTube as well. The mighty Quinn, you'll see him on a Monday on Acsom. Now, Donny Tiny Hands, any opportunity to bring up that tremendous name? Wanyama sent off for Dunfermline on his debut. We'll be keep a wee eye on that one because it's Scott Brown versus Neil Lennon, and Victor Wanyama gets sent off on his debut. How else did the scores go in the Premiership? So, looking at the results, it's not changed the placing. Certainly, Celtic's still top of the league at the moment, 16 points ahead of Rangers. Then you've got Hibs, Aberdeen, Dundee United and Hearts making up the top 6. St Mirren just a point outside the top 6. They had a resounding 5-1 victory over Kilmarnock at home. Hibs beat St Johnstone 3-0. Celtic beat Hearts 3-0, of course, and Aberdeen beat Motherwell 4-1. So a decent result for Aberdeen, who had a brilliant first half to the season. And then they tailed off a wee bit. Where are they sitting now at the moment? They're 46 points, so just a point behind Hibs in third place. And of course, there's another fixture later on tonight, 5:30 at Dundee It's Dundee versus Rangers, and who would bet against Dundee taking a point or two in that one as well. Let's get a wee comment or two up from mainly the YouTube, but if you're watching on Facebook, X, Twitch, LinkedIn, feel free to get involved in the chat as well. Boheed Bob, Maeda to get 38 this season, that would be bra.
Yeah.
Boheed, I want him to get into that group of players, only 8 players, and I called them legends, and there's going to be people saying, oh, you know, this one's not a legend and that one's not a legend. But in terms of a list, that's a legendary list to be part of. Imagine being part of a list as a footballer that includes the likes of Jimmy McGrory and Henrik Larsson, who appear more than anybody else in that particular list. Ewan Boy wasn't impressed with that performance. He says, much better second half, even though no goals. Very controlled and great to give Bernardo and Forrest game time as well. Let's talk about, we've already spoke about Nawrocki, the other guy who came in today, of course, was Sinisalo. Not a great deal to do in the second half, Sean, but important saves in the first.
Yeah, particularly the point blank one from the corner. 0-0 at that point as well. It was. You're right. He didn't. Hearts had the high press at the time as well for the first half hour, so he was under pressure even with his distribution. I don't know if that was a tactic by Hearts due to the conditions, or if it was just their tactics, no matter who they were up against. But he did seem to be struggling against that high press at times, as did many of the Celtic players. But yeah, he was called upon a couple occasions, but that big one from the set piece where he did really well, was very reactive and in a good position. The main thing, I know, kind of bagging of Rotskin, I can go through the list of mistakes because I'd love to hear what Alan Morrison has to say, in fact, because I wonder if I'm just being biased and just like highlighting all of the mistakes he's making. But the one thing that stood out, one main positive that stood out for me was when Hearts get that free kick, which anyway, never a free kick, but when it hits the wall and Nawrocki's the one that's charging it down to get the block on the rebound, whereas a lot of the other players were standing about, and that was evident again as well, because the only other big chance that Hearts had was they had a free header for James Wilson at the back post, and I was frustrated with both Carter Vickers and Johnston at that chance, because Johnston just stands off the guy and lets him cross, just puts his hands behind his back and lets whatever will be. CCV's ball watching as well when he should be dropping back to the man. And by CCV not dropping back to that man, it makes Nawrocki come off his man, which leaves the man free. So you can make an argument that Nawrocki should be sticking with his man. I don't know, but I was frustrated by the overall static nature of the defence there and Nawrocki having to cover for them. But yeah, on Sinisalo, he kept a clean sheet. He made saves when he had to make saves, and he did a lot of square passing in the second half when Hearts dropped deep, and there wasn't really much for him to do in the second half, really. I think there's the one where CCV sold him short a little bit in the back pass.
Yeah.
And he had to come out. And that was it. There was nothing else for him in the second half. He caught a couple of crosses in the first half as well. So I think overall, good, positive. Hard to judge really, but positive overall.
Yeah, there's a few other players I want to actually highlight, maybe not to the level of man of the match, for example, but I think the first one I would talk about is Rio Atati, because during the week, JP and I had a really interesting discussion on a Thursday, because I was saying, well, all the focus is rightly on Maeda at the moment. We're down to 2 Japanese players, guys. I mean, we had 6 at one point. Kobayashi got a mention earlier on in the show. Right, so who was it then? Kobayashi, Ideguchi, Kyogo, Rio, Iwata. That was the one I was forgetting, by the way, and the golden balls at himself, Dyson Maeda. So there was the half a dozen players. We're down to 2. And my take on this was, yeah, all the focus is rightly on Maeda, but let's keep Rio here as well. I think the two of them have got a part to play in the future. Maybe not in the long-term future, of course, but certainly next season, and I'd keep them both. That was my take on it. I think there's a few things that Rio can refine in his game. And I thought the same, actually, about Matt O'Reilly when Brendan Rodgers came to the football club. There was just some wee things that he could refine to really take it up another level. And Rio, I feel the same. Sometimes you watch him and he puts in so much, a mature performance. I would call today a mature performance, but there's one or two elements of his game that he could improve on. And I watched him today, and I don't know if you agree, guys. I thought it was a really accomplished performance by Rio Atati. My biggest my biggest criticism is around the amount of times he loses possession. But I didn't see that being an issue today. He's shooting was erratic, but that can be worked on. We've seen him scoring some fantastic goals. But I think, there are players, and one of them today is pointed out by Alex, 1967, the Bonnet. I thought Hatate put in a shift today. He deserves some credit. Chris, do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. I agree that he does give up possession, but a lot of the time when he gives up possession, it's because he's trying to make that final penetrative pass to create a goal, and that's
the killer
pass.
Can we call it killer rather than penetrative? Just killer.
Yeah, you're right.
Killer
That
pass.
sounds weird, right? Yeah, so the killer pass, but he does, and so he's losing it in areas very, very advanced in the pitch where you've generally got enough support there for it not to result on a dangerous counter by the opposition. I think you need to absorb some of that with a player like Rio Hatate, and I agree. I think he had a really pretty effective game today. Shooting was erratic, as you've said, and there were a couple of passes that were misplaced. But the ball for Kuhn before Kuhn assists Maeda is beautiful, and it's under pressure as well. But initially, I thought, did he get lucky, because it looks as though he slipped prior to it. But when you see it in the replay, he's tracking Kuhn's run the whole time, so he's always looking. He's got good vision. He's got good range of passing. And I think he brings something to the team in that midfield in particular that I don't think any of the other players necessarily do. He's just got that little bit of flair, that little bit of invention that sets him apart. So I thought he had a really good game today. I thought Callum McGregor had a fantastic game in midfield today as well. And what was great, actually, another point that was really good today for the team, both McGregor and Hatate get taken off to get a rest because we had appropriate reinforcements on the bench, which was good to see. Thought Bernardo came in and he played that kind of number 6 holding role, the McGregor role, whereas sometimes he plays a bit more advanced. What I noted about Bernardo today, without being too flashy, the accuracy of his passing, certainly based on what I saw, was astonishing. Really good. Did not waste possession once. I thought it was phenomenal. So really impressed with him coming back, and hopefully more minutes he gets, he'll play that part that we've said. Big impact towards getting the title over the line. McCown came in, did his usual. Ida came in. God loves a trier. The one thing I found frustrating about Ida today is I found him, he was out wide too often. He needs to be in the box. He's most effective when he's just running that straight line in and out the box. And he's out right, he was out left. He's not a guy who's going to create too many goals, and we saw that today. I want to see Ida in the box, playing to his strengths, and that was the only frustration I would say with the subs today, is that Ida came on. I thought it was a game where he could have made more of an impact, but I just found he was in the wrong position quite a bit.
He does seem to go to the right quite a bit, and I think Chris, he picks up some really good positions actually. And there was one occasion where he probably should have shot, but he tried to lay Yang on, I think. But for me, Ida is an instinctive player. If he gets too much time on the ball, he will often dilly-dally a wee bit, and I think that's just an issue that he's got. I've seen it a couple of times. I've been sticking up for Ida all season, and I'm going to continue to do so.
Definitely.
I don't subscribe to a lot of the backlash he seems to have got this season.
No, not at all.
And I was delighted that he got that goal for Ireland as well. So
I was hoping that would kick him on actually, and give him back confidence. But
he'll have his moment. He'll have his moment between now and the end of the season, Chris. I'm sure of it.
No doubt.
Remember, that was all the chat before the Villa game, wasn't it? He needs this, he needs that. He goes out there and scores a couple of goals against Villa down there.
We know he's got it in his locker. And
he
that's
does.
The thing. That's it. You just want to see the consistency. It's difficult when you're coming off the bench as well, so you've got to take that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're talking about Rio there, Sean. What's your take on Hatate's performance today and overall his part within this team?
I was actually quite frustrated with him in the first 30 minutes of the game, but then he does set up the third goal, and I don't know if the nature of the game changes at that point or something, but he does lift his game after that point, and because he had put a few given possession away a few times before that, but it was a good fight to set up that third goal. And in the second half, he was very composed, a lot of good turning under pressure, and that's where I think he's been. I don't know. It's weird. He always does better in the second half at the moment. For the last few weeks, I don't know what it is. even like when you think back to when we played Hearts, I think it was Tynecastle maybe earlier in the season, or maybe it was, I can't remember, maybe it was Celtic Park, but Hearts were marking Callum McGregor at the game, and we couldn't get going, and Rodgers dropped Hatate in beside McGregor to play a double six, and that was one of the best games he's played all season, and it really turned the game around. So he's really good at that sort of thing, like taking possession in tight areas, turning under pressure, using his low centre of gravity. He's excellent at that. If anything, he's better at that than the things that he's famous for, which is, those Hollywood passes that we speak about. Engels and McGregor are both much better at those forward passes than Hatate is, but we see Hatate try them much more. So I just wonder if there needs to be an adjustment. I don't know, we got criticised lately. What was the game? Was it the derby where, I can't even remember, where he gets possession and Maeda makes a run and he cuts back and plays a safe pass instead, and he got some criticism for it. And I'm wondering, maybe that's an adjustment he needs to make to his game. I don't know, because he doesn't seem, even though he can do it sometimes, he's got a pretty low percentage on those forward passes, but he's very good in tight positions and turning with the ball. And I wonder if that's how he needs to develop his game to be that kind of player.
Yeah, him and Maeda, 27. So that, it's not as though they're at that point where you can't develop. This is a big thing. People go on about development of players, and sometimes it's after a certain age you can't develop. Well, I would say Scott Brown developed under Brendan Rodgers, and Brown. Exactly. I don't think the age holds you back from developing as a footballer and adding certain aspects to your game if the coaching's right. And obviously Rodgers is that coach. Paul Leinster, or Leinster, I think that's Ronnie Glavin in your avatar. We're writing off a really good defender, Nawrocki, you say, Paul. I don't know. Let us know in the comments. He's still dividing opinion in terms of writing him off. I think he deserved to be in the starting 11 today. I don't think he's the long-term answer. Alan Robertson, don't get us wrong. The thing is, I will never know, because it will always go down as a sellout. We don't know how many bums were on seats, but this is certainly not a dig at anybody who didn't go to the game. There are occasions where you cannot go to the game. There's people who've got tickets who don't even live in the country, of course, and they don't always have that opportunity to come up. We're just asking for a system. It's software. You get it installed, and you are able to exchange your ticket. Sean's already explained how that can work to your benefit as well. Alan, the weather is horrible outside. Yeah, it is. It puts a lot of people off. Absolutely, no doubt about it. And Parkhead Boy, tickets are always available on the day, but it's about taking that chance if you're travelling from a distance as well. You just want to have that electronically. We're in that, day and age where you can do that. All right, I've got a ticket, and I'll wait to the game. Brilliant. QR code.
Sitting on your own as well.
Yes, sitting on your toes. Weather was barking the day. Don't blame the empty seat. I don't blame the fans, Stevie. It's definitely a system issue, and we need to implement that system. A lot of clubs have got it. There'll be the best version of that. It'll be like VAR. You can go cheaper. You can go and get the best version. Let's just go and get the best version and utilise that. Guys, I don't know if I'm looking too much into this, but see today, as well as a new shade of hair that Dyson Maeda was sporting, also noticed that Brendan Rodgers has gone back to the full suit, shirt and tie. He had absolutely casualed it down, didn't he? And he was wearing the CP company stuff and the big jackets with no arm labels and all that kind of stuff. Am I reading too much into this, Sean? Does he mean business? He's back. He's reset. He's been to Dubai for a couple of weeks. He's back. And it's the ruthless Brendan that we know and love.
He's getting ready for awards season and all the Hampden visits that are coming up, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely is. It's all psychology, Chris. It's all psychology.
I believe
he's got the suit back on. Yeah, it's for the trophy cabinets and all that kind of stuff at the end of the season. He's
quite right.
Absolutely. Ross Murphy, if I hear Peter Grant saying Cine Solo one more time, listen, we've all got our... What's mine? Let me know what's mine. Which one did I get wrong? Remember when Rogic or Rogic? Was it Rogic or Rogic? Which one was it? There was always a bit of that. And then, of course, Kevin Graham had the famous El Ahusi instead of El Yanusi. But if I'm going to have a dig at Kev Graham, I'm also going to credit him for what has now been viewed 50,000 times across all our social media channels. Thankfully, somebody recorded it, Chris, thankfully.
I saw it. I saw it. And actually, I got to hear it live. His poem was phenomenal, and I got I've also got to see Martin O'Neill's reaction to it. Back to he was waiting to come on stage, and he was absolutely loving it.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, right,
yeah,
right.
especially when he got the mention. But yeah, the to then see it back and you actually appreciate how good it was and how well it was delivered by Kevin. Listen, it looks easy, but see, to go up on that stage and actually stand, and it's different. I mean, we do this, and I still get nervous doing this. I can't imagine what it must have been like for Kev standing on that stage in front of what was an absolutely brilliant crowd that night. But to stand up there and deliver that word perfect the way he did is phenomenal. So honestly, well done, Kev. It was tremendous.
It was, and if anybody's wondering what we're talking about, Kevin Graham, for the very first time, premiered a new poem, and it was an introduction for Acsom, and it was called Choose Celtic, or Choose a Celtic State of Mind. I'm not sure what the title is, but we're going to give it the full boona, and we're going to record it professionally, and we're going to have it up on the YouTube channel at some point soon. It was phenomenal. It's on all our social channels, and as I say, over 50,000 people have watched it. Paul Rees, Calmac showed his worth-to-date captain. Fantastic. The Urban Culture would bet against Dundee taking 2 points from that game today. Did I say 2 points or a couple of points? Well, Rangers might drop a couple of points. You know what I mean. You knew what I meant. Pete McGee, living down south, I have almost zero chance of ever getting to a game. My son treated me to a recent game via hospitality route, which set him back hundreds. Yeah, it's expensive. And if you're travelling from afar, or you just find yourself back in the area, like when Sean's back to visit family and stuff in Scotland, part of that trip is you want to go to see Celtic. Yeah. So yeah, get it sorted out. And we cannot wrap up today without talking about the other goal scorer, of course, Jota. We had a discussion point during the week again where I've thrown it out that Jota and Bernardo are going to be huge for us between now and the end of the season, Sean. Jota came back. He was welcomed back with open arms. It kind of softened the Kyogo loss and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't expect him to be hitting the ground running, to use a cliche, and he really has slotted in almost seamlessly, hasn't he?
The funny thing is, in that first half, again, Kuhn was losing the ball quite consistently, but then Kuhn gets an assist. Jota was not seeing as much of the ball, but when he was getting it, he was much more efficient with it. He wasn't losing possession at all. So I think it does seem apparent to me that he does need to build his conditioning. If he can get his conditioning to the same level that Kuhn's at right now, then Jota will be our number one winger. So I'm not worried. He's still scoring goals. He's still getting assists. He still looks like he's got a good player, good technique. He's not lost much above the shoulders, and certainly between his first spell and now. So I'm still happy he followed in for that first goal. That's not something that you can take for granted. Like, you don't just score rebounds by accident, and he does it consistently. So I'm happy having Jota out there.
Yeah, good anticipation. You've got to be there, to make a difference, Chris. And obviously, you're modelling your hairdo on Jota as well, by the looks of it.
He's modelling his hair on mine.
It was right there. It was right there.
Open goal for you, Chris. We're keeping a wee eye. I mean, on this form, Celtic obviously were tremendous in the first half, very clinical on the attack, particularly on the attack. And on that form, I think we can dismantle anyone. The frustration is we've not done it against Rangers in the last couple of games. In fact, some might even argue in the last 3 games. Because obviously the 3 each game in the League Cup final as well, which interestingly enough was the last time Forrest played. This is his first game of 2025. But anything can happen in a cup. We know that, but I'm keeping an eye on St Johnstone for obvious reasons, and they were systematically taken apart today by the looks of it by a Hibs team who are flying when you consider how they started the season off. 3-0, St Johnstone got beat. Celtic could well be unstoppable this season. If that's the case, it's another treble. I mean, that is incredible to think that, when I started going to work, in fact, when I was born, Celtic had won 2 trebles, both under Jock Stein. That great golden era of the 60s and 70s, both won in the 60s. And then Martin O'Neill does it in his first term, 2000, 2001. And I remember all the talk back then. It was like the first guy since Jock Stein to win a treble. And it was not normal. And it was not normal until Brendan Rodgers came to this football club.
I still remember the VHS box set that they released for that. Tony Roper.
Yeah.
It's up there somewhere. Yeah, it was a triple. Yeah. You're right. It was a triple VHS.
3 VHSs, because there was no DVDs at the time.
Do you know, there was an interesting point. I don't know if anyone that was at the event picked it up, but towards the end of the night, when Martin was just getting ready to leave the stage, Martin O'Neill, he actually said, "Thank you so much for coming and waiting in the rain," because it had been pouring that night, and it was so close to his first words at the front of Celtic Park when he joined, and I couldn't believe it when I was listening. It absolutely brought the memory coming back. It was those famous words, "Thank you so much for waiting in the rain," and all the fans just responding. But that was some season. That one still for me the best season I've ever witnessed.
Oh, particularly after everything that we'd gone through. We were waiting on a vintage season after Fergus's takeover, and we hadn't quite had it. I know we'd stopped the 10 and we'd won a few trophies here and there, but not a great amount. I mean, in the 90s, as we were talking about, we in that period, we were winning one League Cup, one Scottish Cup, and one league. It's just horrendous to think about. And then Martin comes in and everything changes. But again, what he did that day is he tapped into the mindset, the Celtic fan base, and he was talking about bringing success. I will do everything I can to bring success to this football club. But that is one of the most famous speeches on those steps at Celtic Park. One of. I mean, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking Brian Dempsey, obviously. The game is over. The Rebels have won. That's probably the most famous, right? But Martin O'Neill's is up there, isn't it? And then you think of other moments outside Celtic Park, Sean, famous arrivals. Robbie Keane was a famous one. There was thousands there for Robbie Keane. Right. We probably can't class Brendan Rodgers as being on the steps because we had to go into the stadium. There were so many people turned up for that, 13,000. But what other famous ones out front? There'll be loads of times where we've came out with a trophy and all that kind of stuff. But there are three that I remember. Robbie Keane's arrival, huge. Maybe Roy Keane's arrival as well. Brian Dempsey's speech, Martin O'Neill's speech. But in terms of his speeches, Dempsey's going to take hard. Nobody's beating that.
I can't think of any other ones where we've gathered for arrivals, to be honest. Was there any? No, Craig Bellamy wasn't. No, he could have came in at midnight, so we didn't really get that one.
There was a bit of fanfare about Juninho coming to the club at the time because he was quite a big name player, and he was coming the season after Larsson had left. And I think there was quite a lot of fanfare. Sadly, it didn't amount to much.
What's just happened?
What's happened?
Dundee scored.
Dundee scored.
Yes. I'm glad we ran over now.
Simon Murray.
Stay scored for Dundee. Stay professional.
There you go. Hey, professionalism goes out the window on moments like this. Simon Murray has scored in the second minute against Rangers. There you go. Right. We're going to let everybody go, and we could just stay for another 90 minutes if you fancy it. Oh, is it a cracker?
Yeah. Well, John, before we go, if I could just give a two shout-outs, if that's all right. One's just say a massive thank you to everyone associated with Acsom, both the contributors and then everybody that follows the channel, for supporting the Kilt Walk donations for wee Jamie Tierney. We absolutely smashed our £1,000 target. We've gone well over that now. We're keeping the fundraising open, so I mean, if anyone still wants to contribute to that, then you can see my link on the socials, and anything we can give. It's so appreciated, not only by myself but of course by Jamie's family. So thank you so much, everyone, for the generosity on that. And then the second one is one of our most famous players, Chris Sutton. His son is doing the London Marathon to raise money for Alzheimer's research, which I believe Chris's father and Harry's grandfather suffered from that. And Chris has been a big campaigner for CTE, to try and avoid CTE and the what brings conditions like Alzheimer's on. So he's raising funds for that research and doing London Marathon. So yeah, if anyone can contribute to that, or at least share that around their own socials, that would be great.
It certainly would, Chris, and a great response to your fundraiser. Well done to you and everybody who's joining you. Do you have to wear a kilt? I'm guessing that's
you don't have to wear a kilt. And I didn't wear a kilt when I did it last year. I wore a pair of walking trousers, but I've got my wedding kilt, which is very much the Celtic tartan. I'm thinking I'm not going to wear the full get up. I might wear that.
You said Celtic tartan there. I was just about. My next question was: is it denim? The Urban Culture. You never know. Let's do a watch along. I would, but I have no idea what time it is. It's probably about 3 a.m. for Sean.
Half one.
One last comment before I let you go, Sean. Colin Rogers, I don't know. Yeah, Colin, I think you were there. You were there on Thursday night, weren't you? Because Martin O'Neill came on the stage and added a line to Kevin's poem, and it was all around Raphael shite. Who gets a few mentions actually when you talk to Martin O'Neill. Affectionate mentions. Right.
It takes a mickey, but but gives affection an equal measure. It really does. He's good.
Yeah. It's like bless him when Brendan Rodgers says that about a plate of bless him. Listen, thank you every single one of you for getting involved. Go away and enjoy your Saturday night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, whatever the weather is. And we'll be back on Monday, of course, at 12:30. Thanks everybody for joining us, and thank you to Chris and Sean for being my co-hosts on A Celtic State of Mind.
Yeah.